What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to season 4 of the Mindshare podcast. As you know, additional podcasts are available at mindshare101.com and on all the major podcast platforms. This week's episode is sponsored by our friends over at the Buzz Conference and Kits Keep in Touch Systems. Now, be sure to mark your calendars September 7th and 8th for Disruption 2022 being put on by the Buzz Conference. It's going to be located at the Liberty Grand in Toronto, Ontario. It is sure to be another incredible event being put on by the Buzz. So again, make sure you follow them on Instagram at the Buzz Conference. Visit them online at www.thebuzzconference.com. Grab the latest copy of the Buzz Digital Magazine, and of course, get your tickets for Disruption 2022 taking place September 7th through 8th. Of course, we are always very grateful to have the Buzz Conference as an ongoing sponsor of the Mindshare podcast. Kits is always with us, as you know, and I have to tell you, our team keeps coming up with new, incredible ways to help you get out there and build that Mindshare. Of course, Mindshare equals market share, and the most recent new sort of launch that we could talk about is the brand new e-news feature. And yes, you might be sitting back going, but Dave, you guys have always been doing email news and email newsletters and email blasts, and it's amazing stuff. And yeah, I know it's really amazing. But we really stepped it up. We're taking it to another level now. And so again, we've come up with some awesome stuff for you. It's all tied into your CRM. This is where we're really leveraging your most important audience, the contact list that you have, the people that are delivering 70-90% of your business. We are leveraging a communication strategy to get out in front of them and again, keep you top of mind, AKA building that mind share. Well, the more mind share you build, like I continue to say, the more market share you get. So if you haven't checked out Kits yet, like, what are you waiting for? Go over to my website, mindshare101.com. Go to the top right, click on marketing, learn more about the program, more about the system. And if you want to get in touch with our team, DM me, DM my team, or get in touch directly with my Kits team, and we will certainly set you up to be able to I'll get a demo of this incredible system. Again, mindshare101.com, click on marketing. Also, as you know, our push to 100 is on. We are on a push to 100 reviews on iTunes, and we'd like to ask you, if you haven't yet, please go over to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Again, ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Give us a big 5 stars. Give us a review. Tell us how much you love the show. If there's 6 stars, click those too. But seriously, if you enjoy the show, we'd love to hear from you. And again, as always, I am grateful for you being here, and thank you in advance for going ahead and leaving one of those reviews. Today's episode is number 189. He is the co-founder and CEO for the Americas of Dent Global, a business accelerator best known for helping 6- and 7-figure founders to establish themselves as the go-to person in their industry. He is the co-author of the Canadian edition of Key Person of Influence and host of the Dichotomy podcast, helping leaders navigate the dichotomies they face in business and life. Entrepreneur named Key Person of Influence as one of the top business growth accelerators in the world, and Dent was recently named the 2021 Business Enabler of the Year at the British Business Excellence Awards, as well as 2021 Business Advisor of the Year in the Growing Business Awards. With offices in London, Sydney, and Toronto, serving all time zones, Dent has a team of 50-plus people and has acquired award-winning businesses in IT, video, awards, and publishing to form a full-service strategy and implementation group for entrepreneurs. Joining me on this episode of the Mindshare podcast is co-founder of Dent Global, Mr. Mike Reid. Mike, welcome to the Mindshare podcast.
What an introduction,
Hey,
Mr.
man,
David Greenspan. Thanks very much, my man.
It's a pleasure having you, man. It's a pleasure having you, having you on the show and getting to see you and talk with you again. I know when we hit it off over at the Multifamily Conference, which was an absolute blast. I know you kicked ass on stage, and we got to talk in the background and realize like how much synergy we actually have together when it comes to like the world of marketing and entrepreneurship and helping people raise their level of success. So it's definitely exciting to have you here. Now I just talked about your bio and sort of brought up who you are, but I guess maybe tell us more, like who's Mike Reid and what's Dent Global all about?
So maybe a little bit on me to begin with. As you can hear from my accent, I'm originally from Australia, so I moved to Toronto, Canada in 2019 after taking a sabbatical from our business for about 6 or 12 months in 2018. Long story short is we started our company in 2010 out of London in the UK, and we're a business coaching and training company kind of at the heart of what we do, and that's how we started. My business partner Daniel wrote a book called Key Person of Influence about 10, 12 years ago, and talked about this idea that every industry revolves around an inner circle of people that are seen as the go-to people for what they do. They attract better opportunities, they earn more money, they have more fun, they get to be part of interesting projects, they're in demand, people want to work with them. And what we realized was that, these people it wasn't because they were like technically so much better at their skill set than someone else down the road, but they were very good at building a brand. And 12 years ago, building a personal brand was a little bit of a new thing, right? If we kind of take ourselves back to 2010, social media was just becoming a thing. Most adults in the world were like, social media, like why would we spend time on social media? A huge waste of time. And so we were advocating building a personal brand back then, right? And the importance of it. And so I'd been running this company in Australia for many, many years with another business partner. And I got to my early 30s, and really honestly, I felt a little bit burnt out, right? A bit tired, a bit jaded. We'd been growing this company around the world, and all sorts of like ups and downs along that journey. We kicked off with a real bang in Australia in 2010 or 11. We ran a roadshow of events up and down the country. We became one of the fastest growing young companies in 2014. And it looked great from the outside, David, like the sales and the marketing and everything was fantastic. Inside, it was chaos. The culture was all wrong. We were just burning people out left, right, and center because we had these like roadshow of events all the time. And so it was kind of feast or famine, constantly running these big kind of cyclical campaigns, and it gets tiring as you know, running big conferences like that.
Sure.
And so we grew the business. We had all sorts of kind of challenges along the way. We had a business partner that ended up not being an ideal fit, and so we had to kind of find a way to exit him. We had a CEO in the UK that was running the company into the ground for a period of time, but despite all that, we still managed to grow the core business. We acquired some companies in IT and publishing and video and things like that, which we can talk more about. But I got to my early 30s and I was pretty cooked. I'd been in a relationship in my early 20s for a long period of time. I proposed to this woman and thought I was going to marry her, and then 9 months later, I got dumped. And that was heartbreaking at the time, right? Crushed me. And I was like, oh. And so I kind of went on this journey, as you do through your 20s and early 30s of really discovering myself and who I was as a man. And I got to that point in time, and I was just like, you know what? I don't have a relationship. I feel like I'm just working all the time. I don't have a lot to show for it in terms of friends, connections, because I'd bounced around the country a lot, moving to set up new offices and grow the company. And I'm like, fuck it. Excuse my language. I'm out of here. And so I basically sold everything, and sold everything in terms of my possessions and things like that. Packed everything up into boxes, and then I just went, right, I'm going to go on a sabbatical for 12 months. And so I exited myself operationally out of the company at least, and two other partners were supportive of that, which was awesome. And so I went on this journey. I ended up going to Burning Man in 2018, kind of second year in a row. Big fan of that place and that space that it creates, and ended up falling madly in love with this woman from Toronto, who we happened to be in the same camp. And kind of 24 hours confessed our love to each other. By the end of the week, I decided I'd move to Toronto. And that's what led me to move here. And then I kind of went on this great journey in the meantime, traveling and doing all these kind of cool things along the way. And then eventually got to Canada and set up a chapter for Dent here in the Americas. And, that was 3 years ago, and have just been kind of growing it ever since.
And there's a baby on the way. Speaking of all the roller coaster of all that, there's a baby on the way, which is very exciting. That's very cool.
There's been a marriage and a baby on the way, and so it's all good. And
that's awesome.
I feel reconnected, reconnected to business, to life, to love, to everything else.
That's awesome. Now you brought up the whole idea of brand, and I think that's a great jumping off point here. Of I think there's a lot of misconception around like what is brand, right? I'm wondering, how do you define brand? What does it? How do you define brand, and what does it mean to have a personal brand?
Mm-hmm. So I define brand as your brand is the degree to which your reputation precedes you in the market. So to me, brand is all about reputation. Kind of those two things are somewhat synonymous. And especially if we think of like really the way we look at brands is there's three brands that you can build, especially in like a business context. There's your company brand, which we all are very familiar with, and we all look to like big businesses like Apple and Nike or Tesla or any of these things, and you go, wow, like what incredible brands. And I think the mistake that often business owners make is they look to those brands and they think I've got to replicate a bit of what they're doing. But the challenge is that where they are today isn't necessarily what they did in the very beginning to get there. And so as a small business or an entrepreneur or a business owner, if you had the choice between building a company brand or a personal brand, what we tend to find is the personal brand has 5 to 20x the amount of cut through than a company brand does. And this is pretty obvious when you really think about it, because all through history and evolution, we've been hardwired at a deep biological level to connect and relate with other human beings. Right? So think of the example of if I asked you, without going online and looking at the logo of Google, what color is the second O in the Google logo?
Yellow. I don't know.
I don't know, right? It's like, I don't know either. I look at it every single day, and yet I still can't recognize that. But if David, like, imagine someone you haven't seen in 20 years, like an old friend, and then all of a sudden you're walking down the street in Vancouver or whatever, and you see that face walking down the street across the distance. Instantly, you have facial recognition, right? Because it's like that's just wired into our biology. So it's, when you look at like the Tesla's following on Twitter versus Elon Musk, like he's got easily 6 to 10x the amount of people following him than the company, and Tesla's one of the coolest company brands in the world. Or Tim Cook has twice the number of followers on Twitter than Apple does, and Apple's the largest, wealthiest, most well-resourced company in the world. They got all the money to spend on marketing, and yet more people want to follow him. And he's not even the founder, right? He's just the leader today. So our belief is that there's a strong advantage if you really lean into this idea of, if I had the choice between building up my personal brand, and building up the personal brand requires us to actually step forward and be the evangelist for our business. We actually have to put our ideas, our thoughts, our insights, ourselves kind of on the line to be the reputation, the kind of the proxy reputation for the company. But if we're willing to do that, and willing to take that leap of faith and have that courage and that bravery to do that, then you'll have a extraordinary advantage compared to just sitting behind the scenes trying to build up the company. Right? So that's kind of when we look at those two. And then the third one, which I'll just touch on, but we won't talk more about, is product brand. Okay. So think of Tesla as a company, but Tesla has the Model 3, has the Model X. Apple has the iPhone, the iPad, the iPhone. These are product brands. And that's again an important brand that you can build. And I can talk about, for us, Key Person of Influence is a product brand, but our company brand is Dent. And there's just a kind of a distinction there.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get into that in a little bit more detail there. But when we talk about, let's say, the personal brand and looking at that and saying, especially in a sales position, as individuals and small businesses, part of that is looking at ourselves and going, that's probably the most important part of it that we can build up, to what you just said as well about the facial recognition and that relationship as well. So how does an individual then figure out what their brand is? Or does that develop over time? And I mean, I'd say the latter there, it certainly does develop over time. That said, though, what would your thoughts be if somebody said, well, how do I know what my brand should be, or what it is? What would you say to somebody?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's definitely a process of discovery more than, it's actually, as I talk this through, I actually think it's a process of both discovery and a little bit of engineering. So what I mean by that is that I feel like it's powerful to build a business that's an expression of who you truly are as a human being. So like think of Richard Branson. Virgin is totally an expression as a company. It's an expression of his values and who he is. If there was two intersecting themes that come together around who Richard Branson is as a human being, it's all about the intersection of business and fun. If he finds something that's fun, he'll want to turn it into a business. If he finds a business that's really boring and bland and like needs shaking up, he'll want to make that fun and interesting. And
it's nice to have billions of dollars to be able to do that, right?
Yes, but he didn't have that in the beginning, of course. So. And so, like coming back to this thing of how do I discover what my personal brand is, or how do I kind of figure out what I want to be known for? I think the question of like, what do you want to be known for in the next 3 years, let's say, is a useful question to explore and find an answer to. My belief is that in the beginning of building a personal brand, you want to be known for getting your audience, your market, your clients, your prospects to a particular destination. And I believe that you want to define that destination in a way that you can kind of uniquely own it in time. So an example of this is when we launched Key Person of Influence, like we ended up writing this book. And so on the front cover of the book is the title, and it basically kind of sums up this idea that there are 5 principles that you should adopt in order to become a highly valued, highly paid, well-recognized person within your industry. And at the time, that was a newish concept, and there wasn't any other real content or material or anyone kind of owning that space, that mindshare, to use your term, David.
I like that word. I like that
person of influence, right? And I think this is again why we align so much, is because I like that idea of mindshare is, I think, such a it's the nexus between that and like what is a brand is so interwoven that again that's probably why you gravitate towards it and why you're so good at it, is because again, like having a brand is really about like, do you own the mindshare around what it is that you want to own, and what do you want to be known for? My question is another way of thinking about like, what's the mindshare you want to have in your market? And so I feel like it's, if you try and build a personal brand just based on kind of like thought leadership and ideas that's not really linked to moving people towards some kind of an outcome or a destination, then it's almost like navel gazing. It's a little bit ephemeral or just sort of nebulous, right? Whereas if you can come up with what is a destination, a result that I want to get people to, that I can actually create transformation, help move them from where they are now to where they want to be, and deliver them to that outcome and that destination, whether it's through your insights and thought leadership or the products and services you create to get them there. If you can get known for that destination as the individual behind getting them there, which in our terms, this is where the personal brand, the product brand starts to kind of come together, because Key Person of Influence is a destination. It's a product brand. But as an individual, Mike Reid, my personal brand is really kind of built off getting people to that place. And it's powerfully reinforced because I have the stories, the case studies. I can showcase that I can actually deliver people to that destination consistently. Mm-hmm. And it's a highly desirable place that other people want to get to. So now, as a result of getting people there, Mike Reid has a reputation of, he's the guy, he's part of Key Person of Influence. He'll help you become a key person of influence in your industry. And it's not based on kind of me just forever sharing thoughts and ideas and content for the sake of it that's a bit nebulous without actually delivering upon an outcome and result. So I know it's a long answer to the
No. But listen, I fully understand it. This comes with. I mean, look, it includes substance, right? It includes not just putting something out there for the sake of putting it out there, but actually having, as you keep saying, a destination that you can help people get to. And I believe that when we are sharing that message out there, we're building enough mind share around what that thought is. When you bring that thought to life and you can show people that there's a path to be able to take that thought, execute on it, and become better with it. Now we're helping people get to a destination, right? So fully understand that. Now you continue to bring up this term, person of influence, the key person of influence. And that was really what, I took from you and sort of said, hey, let's take today's episode and talk about that, about becoming a key person of influence. What does it mean to be a key person of influence? And, how does that help me grow as a business owner or entrepreneur?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So being the key person of influence can really be summarized as being seen as a go-to person or a go-to brand around a particular niche or a destination. See it as you're a thought leader in your industry, you have authority around a particular domain. It doesn't mean that you need to be an influencer.
Okay, interesting. Let's define that one.
So I think we all think of an influencer as someone who's got a large following on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Probably pretty fair, right?
Yep.
And maybe for many of us, we define being an influencer as if you've got 10, 15, 20,000 or more people following you on your social media. Would that be fair? Now,
I think it's the first place that people go to when we talk about influence. These days, it's exactly where it goes.
Yeah. And that's great. I think that's an admirable place to get to, and it's a beneficial place to get to. I don't think it's necessary to be seen as a KPI in your industry. Right? We use that shortened term. I know lots of entrepreneurs, and we have lots of entrepreneurs in our community that don't have a big social media following, but they wield a lot of authority and influence within their market. People know them, they like them, they're trusted, they're well connected to other key players in their industry. They have products and services that deliver upon a result and an outcome that's transformative and powerful for their market. They've shared thought leadership and ideas and insights, but they don't necessarily have a big social media following. They might have won some awards, they do some speaking, things like that. So to us, being a key person of influence goes beyond just being an influencer. Like if you're an influencer, then you've got this sort of social media influence in your industry. But again, we all know that there's lots of influencers, people with large followings that are broke. They don't have a commercial engine behind it. They don't have a way to commercialize that attention. So for us, there's kind of 5 key elements that come together, which is number one, you've got a compelling message. You can actually get up and pitch what you do and provide an answer to that question, what do you do, in a powerful way. And people are very clear around who are you, what do you deliver, what are you known for? And often those key people of influence can say a lot more in 2 minutes than most people can say in 2 hours. So compelling message, compelling pitch. They've also published content. In many cases, they've written a book because that book just builds authority around your domain of expertise. And I know, everyone kind of listening to this is primarily in the real estate game. And again, like this is a perfect example where like so many agents, such a saturated industry. It's like, how do you differentiate? How do you stand out? Publishing, and the apex of the publishing pyramid, if we thought of it as that, is publishing a book. A podcast is a very powerful publishing platform. Video is, of course, a powerful publishing platform. The combination of all those things, which we refer to as like watch, read, listen, do, content and material, all of that stuff coming together gives you powerful authority within your industry. But publishing a great book, credible book that's well written, and then promoting that far and wide so that book can get out there into the market, nothing quite builds authority like a book. And so over the last 12 years, we've helped 1,000 entrepreneurs to publish books, and that's kind of a big driver of it. Leverages them into relationships they otherwise would have struggled to open up. It gets them into partnerships that helps distribute that book to more and more people. Media are far more likely to want to talk to them. It helps them get speaking gigs. It attracts talented team and investors. Like there's so many different things that having that credibility through a book and authoring a book, just it's hard to beat. The third element is product, right? So they've got products where it's not linked to time. They've got things they can sell where they've got a team that can deliver upon what they're promising, and they've productized the delivery process, but they've either got product or they've productized the service. They've built their profile, whether it's in social media, but also things like winning awards, doing live speaking, appearing in third-party media, like credible publications, things like that. That stuff, it elevates their profile. So there's kind of 4 elements to profile building beyond just that one social media element. And then the 5th element is partnering. They're well connected to key people in their industry. So, they might have a partnership with a company that provides a bit of the product or service they deliver. So they might bundle in some of what a partner does into their offering, and that brings more credibility to them. They don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it helps them leverage off others in their industry. They might have brand partnerships where they have credible people that are aligned to the company in some kind of way that gives them more credibility, endorsement, more sort of wow factor. So as an example, when I came here to launch in the Americas, I created a list of 50 very influential entrepreneurs, did a little video, reached out to them all and explained, hey, I'm landed in Canada. Would you be open to a conversation? Love to see if there's some ways to work together. And a whole bunch of them I interviewed as case studies of key people of influence in the book. And so when we published the book, all these really credible people were showcased as case studies, and that makes the method of what we teach much more credible, because I'm associating people who've already got a personal brand in this geography. Unlike me, I had no connections, nothing here. And I link that to the value proposition of what we do, and that provides more wow factor, right? So that's kind of an example of partnering. And again, coming back to the book gave me a good excuse and a reason to do that, right? So there's these assets that we believe are important to build that leverage you into these kind of relationships. And as you get that, bit of that wow factor from that relationship and goes into the book, people read the book, they trust the material more, so that drives to more clients. As a result of publishing the book, that helps you get into maybe some media that you would have otherwise struggled to get into. Or maybe you can partner with a real estate association where you come along and do a talk and everyone gets a copy of that book. There's kind of this pinball effect between all those 5 things. And our belief and our experience says that if you do those 5 things well, you very much kind of position yourself as that key person of influence.
Okay, so we look at the 5 different aspects of what can help you become that person. As I talk to a lot of agents and I talk to a lot of people in the industry who are really out there, and naturally we're all out there, to make money and support our families and put, the roof over our head, etc. People want to make money. And part of that is, what is the strategy to get there? And as we talk about becoming a key person of influence, especially in today's day and age of how important it is to continue to build on relationships amongst all of the noise that is out there in this world. I can hear you and listen to you say the book, the content, the video. And I can kind of almost even sit there and go yeah, I know. I'm watching people do it. How do I get myself in the right frame of mind to actually become that person? Right? Because it's one thing to say, I'd like to be there. It's another thing to actually go and be there. Right? So how do you get people to actually get into that frame of mind to say, okay, you know what? I am going to sit down and start getting into video. I am going to sit down and map out and then continue to actually write a book. I am going to go and search out partnerships, right? Because these are all the things that it takes to become that KPI. How is it that I get into the frame of mind to do that? Is it just the desire to want to win? What would you suggest to people? How do you get somebody over that hump who's like, Mike, I hear you, but,
Totally. Look, I think as an agent as well, you're probably pretty competitive by nature, right? So that's a good start, because I think competition plays a big role in us being successful as entrepreneurs. Look, the principle that we talk a lot about, and I think whether it's our environment or any other, but there's an important principle that we believe, which is environment dictates performance. So if, like, David, if you were kind of working on that project of becoming a key person of influence, or if if you're listening to this and you're going, okay, I want to become a key person of influence, and you start to kind of set out a plan in order to do that. If you're doing that home alone, kind of from the kitchen bench in your own little bubble, trying to come up with a strategy and some best practices to follow, and have the motivation and the accountability and the structure and the template, the determination, like all of these things, it's hard. Because again, if we're in our own little bubble of isolation, it's just very hard to get creative, to stay motivated, to have the insights, the ideas, the inspiration, etc. So I think like that's one scenario. Another scenario is that imagine I picked you up and I kind of put you into Apple's head office. And I said, look, I know you're not in tech. However, you're going to have an office here at Apple in Cupertino, and you're just going to be able to like work from here for the next 12 months. Without changing a thing about what you're doing, just being in that environment is going to change the way you show up. And whether it's like Apple, or if it's like Grant Cardone's office, or any high performance environment, just by being in that environment, it's going to get you to start to think differently, more creatively. You're going to start to talk to other people, that it's going to inspire you around different tools that can be used and different ideas. It's going to introduce you to new structures and the way that meetings are run, and like all of the things that go on in that high performance environment just raise the standard and raise the bar. So I think like part of any kind of big goal that we want to achieve in life, we need to immerse ourselves in some sort of environment that's consistent or conducive with achieving that goal. So if you can surround yourself with a bunch of other people that are doing the same thing at the same time, that's helpful. If you can have some level of like accountability and consequence. So if I don't do the thing I said I'm going to do, there's going to be some level of like blowback, whether it's just like the social pressure of, I don't want to let other people down, that I said I'd do it and I didn't, and now I look kind of a bit embarrassed in front of a peer group. And so I think like we can achieve this in lots of different ways, even just putting ourselves into an office environment, whether like, again, if you're an agent working a little bit in isolation at the moment, just consider that going and working from a co-working space raises the standard a little bit from where you are right now. And that's a very small example. Now, in a co-working space, you're not going to get access to the same kind of insight, strategy, things like that, because it's a different environment. But it kind of starts to raise the bar, raise the standard. I think that's often what we need. We just need a little bit of that raising the bar, and
just to get ourselves into that mindset.
Get ourselves in the mindset, and then something that's going to kind of keep the thing moving, even when the wheels get wobbly. But then outside of that, like if you've got the intention and you feel enough pain to go, you know what, like it sucks being a commodity in my industry, and it sucks being the same as everybody else and not getting the cut through and so on. Like if you feel enough of that pain, the combination of, as human beings, there's two kind of driving forces of human behavior, which is the need to avoid pain and the desire to gain pleasure. If you can feel enough of that and then put yourself into a high performance environment, you're well on the way.
And I mean, this is all, part of the daily grind that I think everybody needs to be involved in order to again, grow in their businesses. Right. And as we talk about that daily grind, I mean, so we get into this mindset of, okay, I'm listening to what you're saying, I'm learning today. And you know what, I see the value in doing that. What are some of the things that, or maybe some of the strategies, the tactics that people should be using to share that out to the world? Maybe you just listed it when you said podcast and book and video. Would that be the way to go about it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it depends on what your personality is. Some people are really well suited to audio. They like to sit in front of a microphone, talk. They feel really comfortable doing that. They could do that for hours on end. Some people are like terrified of being in front of a camera. What I would say is that we live in a world where if you're not in front of a camera, you are at a disadvantage compared to your peers, because that's just frankly the way that people want to consume information and become educated. And a big part of being successful in your industry and in business is we need to educate the market. That's kind of what, when we talk about pitching and publishing is all about educating the market around value, right, of what you do, and around understanding the problems they've got and the outcomes they could be getting to and the mistakes they're making that are perpetuating those problems and how to overcome them in order to get there. So, Part of the journey is about first getting clear on what am I talking about? What's my message? What do I want to be known for? What's that result outcome? Who am I doing it for? Who's my audience? What are the problems they've got? What are the big payoffs they're looking for? Like, how do I bridge them from where they are today, unclear, unknown, struggling, stuck, feeling the pain points they're experiencing, to what are the principles for success they need to follow in order to get to this promised land? And to use a tangible example for real estate, like let's imagine we had a client in Australia that wrote a book called Sold Above Market.
Okay.
Simple 3 words, just like the books Start With Why by Simon Sinek, right?
Yep.
Doesn't mean anything until you listen to the TED Talk and you hear the whole narrative that's built around it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's cracked me open to a new way of thinking, a new paradigm that I wasn't aware of before. And so our client, Jeff, who wrote this book, Sold Above Market, has a particular view or a particular narrative or story around how do you get your property sold above market. And he's got principles that you need to follow in order to do that. Now, are those principles like uniquely just his? No one else is talking about them? No, of course not. But he starts to own that mind share, again, to use your term, David, with his particular audience.
Mm-hmm.
And all you need, or all he needs, is he just needs enough people knowing about it and have enough mind share with them in order to be oversubscribed on his clients he needs each year to hit his goals. And for you listening, it's the same thing for you, right? There's an outcome that you want to link or become synonymous with, that you're known for, with enough people so you're oversubscribed with clients where you can be a bit picky and choosy. Go, you know what, we're full at the moment, but I can refer you to someone else, and you can really take the clients on that you want. As you get more demand than supply, you can start to raise prices and charge at a premium price. And that's really that's the goal, right? Being a key person of influence is just about being oversubscribed, not about being a celebrity in your industry. It's not about being a massive influencer. It's actually just about, I got enough influence and enough authority with enough of the right people, my people, that I can convert the business I want to convert, make the money I want to make, and away we go. Does that help answer that question?
Sorry?
Does that help answer that question?
Yeah, no, it totally does. And what I was going to do was actually take me into the next one here about value prop and really figuring that out. And I think that dovetails right into that of really figuring out what is that value prop that you're putting out there. What is it that you are going to help people with? Like when we talk about sold above market or start with why, what is the value prop in that paradigm shift? So why, or I guess we say that there's a value prop there. We've got to figure out the value prop. So, we know why we need one so that people will tie in. How do I guess figure out what mine might be?
Mm-hmm. Part of it's you need a little bit of structure and a template, right? Some sort of a way to unpack. So there's some of the things I mentioned before are the key elements, which is who's the ideal customer? So who are you trying to attract? We always start with that, number one. So you need to define, who am I making this value proposition for? Some demographics, some attitudes, psychographics. Like, is this the kind of client, like, do you want a client that drags their feet a little bit, that's a bit slow? Or do you want one that's like super ambitious, ready to go, like just hungry to get the job done, right? So we want to start to define that so you know where to look for those people. Because the people who are really hungry to get it done and are ambitious and determined are going to hang out and read different things, watch different things, join different associations, be members of different groups, things like that, than the people that are just shopping around, having a look, kind of dabbling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we want to first define that. We want to define, well, what are their big pain points? Because the ambitious, driven customer, who earns a certain amount, has a certain amount of spare available time, et cetera, is going to have a slightly different set of pain points to the person that's got more time, is dabbling, not as well resourced, et cetera, right? So like these things are obvious, as I talk it through, but, frankly, for most entrepreneurs, real estate investors or agents or whatever, we just don't spend the time actually stopping and unpacking this, articulating it, writing it down. So ideal pain points. And then on the other side of that, if we think of like what makes value, what creates value is the tension between where someone is today to where they want to be in the future.
Mm.
right? It's like we build value in someone's mind based on I can help them connect to the tension between shit, I'm stuck here today and I don't want to be here, and there's a highly desirable place I do want to get to, and there's a gap, right? And so part of building value in someone's mind is we need to kind of help stretch the gap, and for us to do that, we need to very clearly articulate, I understand who you are and I understand what's going on for you right now. Let me talk through some of the issues and the pain points, the things that I see people like you struggling with. And as you communicate that, you talk, and then you really get them kind of in that kind of emotional sweet spot of the deep fear of, what if I don't figure this out? What if I solve these problems? What if I don't get to that destination? And if we can connect them to the pain and connect them to the pleasure, the prize, on what we call the prize, that start with why, sold above market, then we've created this powerful arc in their mind where it's like, okay, Mike, David, whoever is speaking has been able to show me where I am to where I want to be and show me a pathway to follow to get there. You've got my attention. Tell me more.
Now, speaking of telling me more, right, we know that you can't just say it once. I mean, to build a brand, to get out there and have a message, there's got to be consistency in everything. And this really comes down to a routine. You know, how do we maximize productivity, and how important is it to stick to routine when we are working to become a key person of influence? We're working to build that mind share, have people think about us at the right times, have people think about us, you know, even though we don't know when the right time is, when that time comes up, we want to be the first name they think of. And that's through that messaging and that value prop we're talking about. So again, how do we maximize that productivity? How do we stick to routine on a regular basis? Maybe what are some of the things that maybe you do, or some of the little hacks or tricks that you do on a regular to go, look, no matter what happens, I need to make sure that I execute?
So if you're anything like me listening, like, you probably fall into some bad habits with sticking to a routine. It's not easy. Like, man, I think as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, like, our struggle is that, like, the struggle is real. Is like, we have got so many different things we're trying to do, and we're a little bit ADHD, and we're trying to focus on a million and one different things, that part of the challenge is just like, oh my God, where do I begin? And we get distracted and sidelined and so on and so forth. So I think part of this is about focus. It's like, have I got a clearly defined focus of what am I doing, you know, this quarter, this month, this week, and it's mapped out, and I can just stick to the plan. So that's part of it. But then we all know that as we get going in the day-to-day, we get pulled away from the plan with all the fires that we need to fight and the stuff we need to put out. And so I feel like, for me, the secret to managing that is about team, and it's about systems and structure. So it's like a great saying that, you know, people don't run businesses. People run systems that really run businesses. And so when I fall victim to this all the time, where I get pulled off track. And what I've realized over time more and more and more is that what I'm lacking is just, I need the right person, and they need to have the right system to follow. And if I plug the gap with that person and that system, then the thing will get done, right? Because it's their job, they get paid for it. I can then manage them to ensure that the system is followed, it's improved, it's refined, so on and so forth. And so I see that the hack to having a more consistent routine and rhythm is about kind of having that designer mindset, that architect mindset of, my job is to find the right person and build a system they can follow in order to execute on that thing. Because it's probably highly likely that the reason I'm getting off track, not doing that thing, is because it's low on my values. And if it's low on my values, I don't want to do it, and I'll just keep procrastinating, and I'll put it off. I'll get distracted by other things because I just naturally will want to do the things that are high on my values. And so, you know, like, I feel like part of the challenge or the trick, or whatever way you want to put it, is of being an entrepreneur, is to sort of fall in love with being a systems designer, being that architect, like building and making systems for other people to follow. Like, we need to a degree, we need to get comfortable enough with doing that, creating some structures. Because if we're totally unstructured, then we need to have someone in the business that brings that structured systems mindset and approach. And that's what we call a second in command or a 2IC. And maybe you're just like totally the visionary person who just doesn't want to build any systems or structure at all. Then you need to put that person in place in order to do it and manage them. That's the way I found is like, I just got, we got to have that in order to create routine and structure. Cause like, I don't post on social media. I hate it. And I've got a person that does it, but like, if I don't have that person at any one time, then the thing doesn't get done. So the only way it gets done is I got to put the person in place and then help them build the system around doing it, and it gets done.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, in order to scale, you need structure. In that, then, are there some non-negotiables that you throw out there that maybe you operate with on a daily basis and that you would suggest anybody tuned in is also doing to, again, raise that level for themselves?
Let me have a think.
Things that you do maybe on a daily that help you grow.
So I think you know, one of the non-negotiables is you've got to have some kind of project management software system in order to capture workflow. And if you don't have something to write
like a CRM,
well, more like a ClickUp or a Trello or an Asana or some kind of a tool where we can
Trello on a regular.
Yeah, we can get this stuff down into like captured, like off the mental RAM, because that's what we do when we're trying to manage things mentally, is it's running that RAM, and the computer just can't do anything if the RAM's at max capacity. Right? Everything shuts down. It's like 1,001 windows on your Chrome open, or browser tabs open. Like that's the equivalent of trying to manage it mentally. So we've got to have a way to capture that and put that down, and then start to organize what's the stuff that's, you know, high priority, low priority for you, what stuff can be delegated to other people on the team. So I think if you don't have that system, then my experience is you're going to feel like you're constantly in overwhelm.
Yep.
And you're just going to be totally reactionary to whatever the most urgent, immediate thing is that's screaming at you. And all the urgent but unimportant stuff gets done as opposed to the important but non-urgent stuff.
Okay. So a process for workflow that can absolutely help you track it. I like the way you leverage the RAM up in the mindset and the mental part of it. I think we often get very overwhelmed because we're trying to take it all in without a proper system in place of where are we going to mark this down? How am I going to remember that this needs to get done? And in life, especially as an entrepreneur, a small business owner, a salesperson, there's always more coming at us. And because there's more coming at us, there's got to be a way to document that. There's got to be a way to take what is going on that's coming into our minds and saying, look, I can't deal with it right this second, but I've got to have a way to make sure that I don't forget about the fact that it needs to be addressed. And this is all, again, about the scale. And so having a place to document, I think that, again, I use Trello on a regular. I dump everything in there. Any thought that comes at me, it goes right in there because it's a place that I can go back to and reference. Much the same with the CRM. This is where, for me, again, from the contacts we speak to the scheduling that we do on a day-to-day basis, like when am I going to go and work on workflow? When am I going to create content? When am I going to communicate with clients? And when am I going to do all the other things that it takes to continue to grow and scale my business? And so I think from a time perspective and a documenting perspective, those, just to sort of echo what you're saying here, would be two major components when it comes to non-negotiables for anybody that's tuned in here to help themselves again grow.
So David, I don't know if it was my internet connection or if it was yours. It was a little bit choppy back there. Can you re-ask me that question again? Sorry.
Yeah, no, actually what I was doing was just more summarizing what you had just brought up around, having somewhere to document. And I was sort of piggybacking on that and saying that from a time perspective as well, about managing and scheduling, knowing what has to be done and when is right up there on the priority list when it comes to non-negotiables.
And two things that I think are probably like one non-negotiable and one tool that I find really is easy to use and helpful for many of our clients is you need some kind of an EA Swiss Army knife person in the business.
Yes.
If you don't, if you're an agent who's working solo, or you don't have much of a team at the moment, having someone in that role, of course, is really important. If you do already have a team, you probably do already have that person in the role. But one of the things that I've found over the years, David, is that I've had kind of subpar people in that role because it was easy, and then I procrastinated replacing them with a more experienced executive assistant / someone who kind of merges into what we call the 2IC, the second in command, who has the ability to both do the role of supporting you and making sure that you're only doing high value activity, which is primarily going to be sales, marketing, and growth related stuff. Like doing a podcast is a growth activity. Closing a deal is a high value growth activity. But everything outside of that, of course, is going to be pretty low value for you as the leader and the founder. So someone who can effectively help take all of that other low value stuff off your plate, but also has the project management kind of experience and capability to be able to organize that into workflow for the entire team, to organize it into some systems and structure this is the tool recommendation is we use a platform called Notion. And Notion's got great templates, and it's really easy to use for us as leaders, but also for the team. And it's just a place where you can capture the process of like how to do something. And we refer a lot to this idea with our team around assets. That in business and life, income follows assets. And if you're in real estate, you understand this, that if you own an asset, you generate rental income, right? A real estate asset. But in business, if you have business assets help to ultimately do things better, faster, cheaper, and easier, right? So it might be a financial return, like a rental income, but it might be a non-financial return, like allowing a team member at $15 an hour to be able to do a bunch of tasks because you've mapped out the process of how to do it, rather than someone at $25 an hour who's a little bit more experienced, but because there's no process, they're the only one who knows how to do it because all the value in the IP is locked up in their head. And so Notion's got really great templates to just build out some of that process related stuff, and the combination of a really experienced EA that can straddle that role of looking after you and providing that project management layer for the rest of the team, and a tool like Notion does give you a lot of capacity for bringing on new people, scaling up.
So talking about scaling up and bringing on people and looking at our day-to-days and non-negotiables, question for you here. At the end of each of your days, how do you know it's been a successful day for you?
Good. That's a great question. So it's been a successful day if you've done the number one most important thing that you set out to achieve in that day. And the mistake that we often fall into, or the trap we fall into, is we have a list of 3, 4, 5, 10 different things we're trying to do in a day. And in reality, there should really just be kind of what's the number one most important thing to do. And that's going to be true at the quarterly level, at the monthly level, at the weekly level, and at the daily level. And at the daily level, that might be a component of the weekly number one most important thing to do. And of course, the weekly component might be a component of the number one most important thing to do for the month. But part of like getting to where we want to go is we've got to sort of map out the journey from what the destination is right the way back to what are the leading dominoes that get us towards that place. And if we do a good job at the beginning of each quarter, so we do like a quarterly planning and review session with our team in terms of what we're focusing. We do this annually, we do this quarterly, and we do this, of course, weekly in our huddles. But there's a kind of a meeting and rhythm structure. But if you get clear on like what's the number one most important thing for me to do today, and you get that thing done, you should feel like you've had a pretty successful day. If you get more things done, fantastic. But never set out to do 3, 4, 5 things in the day. It's always a recipe for disaster. Figure out what's your number one most important thing. Do that thing well. Everything else is a bonus thereafter.
Okay, cool. So Final words, tips, just to play off of what you just shared there. And as we've been talking about becoming a key person of influence today, what would you say to everybody just tuned in right here as sort of some parting words to help them get out there, build more mind share so that they can get more market share?
What I would say is that if you've been in your industry for some time, you've been in the industry for more than 3 years, let's say, and perhaps many people listening have been in the real estate game for like 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more, you are standing on a mountain of value. You are standing on a mountain of great stories, of insights, of methods, of process, of ways that you go about doing what you do. You've got incredible case studies of clients you've worked with in the past. Like you are on a mountain of insight and intellectual property. However, what tends to happen on our journeys is that, as we kind of metaphorically climb that mountain, we get better and better at what we do. We achieve more things, do more things. You get pretty tired. You get burnt out. You've climbed this mountain, and your legs are wobbly, and you feel like you're cut and bruised and sore, and you just can't go on. And when you look around yourself, like at this metaphorical mountain of value that you're standing on, all you see is dirt and rock and shrubs, and because you're in the thick of it, right? You're in the weeds doing the work. And yet from the mountain on the other side of the valley, someone is looking back at you going, wow, what an incredible mountain that person's standing on. And this is the thing that for many of us, we just lose sight of. You forget that you are standing on a mountain of value. Sometimes you just need a little bit of perspective, and you need a bit of space and a bit of structure or whatever to help you see and recognize it. But if you can have a way to be able to unpack that value, package it, showcase it to the world through these ideas we've been talking about, from how you communicate it in your pitch to publishing content to how you productize it, just by getting better at packaging and presenting that value, man, like the world will get to see what you're standing on. If you don't, then all you see around you is just the kind of the engine room, without seeing the kind of the big cruise liner that you've built.
It's all about perspective.
That's it.
I like that. Mike, where can people find you? How can people connect with Dent? How can people connect with you? I know that you've got a book. You've got some other offerings out there. What can people do to take advantage of Mike Reid and what you offer?
So you can obviously Google Dent Global. You can Google Key Person of Influence. You'll see lots of stuff pop up there. What I would recommend is if you want to get a copy of the book, then just go to becomeakpi.com. That's becomeakpi.com, and you can get a copy of the book. There's a little link there. Put your details in. We'll either send you a PDF if you want the digital one, or if you want a physical copy, leave your address and we'll send you one as a little gift from us.
Very cool. I love it, man. I'm hoping that that everybody will tune in and do that, and make sure you connect with Mike. Find out more about what they're doing to help entrepreneurs and business owners, and all sorts of different businesses really grow their footprint out there. I think there was a great message right there at the end about perspective, and I would again double down on that and say to everybody that as you are, and Mike, just as you said it, but as you are in the weeds, as you are in that place, take a look back, take even a sort of bird's eye view, step up and out of you, look down on you and go, is it, what does it really look like? And I think most of us will be even more impressed when we actually take a moment to take it all in, than if we just continue to operate every single day, because that'll just burn you out. So it's, you got to sit back sometimes and actually look at what you've done to be appreciative of where you were, to where you are, and to where you're going. So, Mike, I thank you. I thank you for making the time today. Some great words. I'm hoping that everybody else fully take advantage of everything that they picked up on. But once again, I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the Mindshare podcast.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, pal. You're either watching us live, you're watching this recording, you were listening to this on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify. Maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're on my site, make sure to download your free copy of the Ultimate Marketing Bundle for Realtors. This is a 31-page ebook packed with a ton of tips and tricks. Plus, there's a ready-to-go 90-day social media content calendar in there to help you build more mind share so that you can get more market share. Of course, if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching, please get in touch with my team, inquire for more information. They'll get that over to you. Much the same if you're looking for a keynote speaker for any upcoming event later on this summer, this fall coming up. Please inquire with us. We'll certainly keep your audience on the edge of their seat. And of course, if you want to entertain any progressive training, and it's a virtual training program, our momentum training, check that out as well. Again, all the details can be found at mindshare101.com. We encourage you to do so. And of course, we look forward to helping you with your own very personalized mindshare experience. Also, don't forget that our push to 100 is on. It is very, very easy. All you have to do is go to ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Again, that's ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Go ahead and head on over there in just a moment. Leave us a big 5 stars, a nice little review. Tell us how much you love the show. And of course, we are always very, very grateful. If you haven't yet, please connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. I want to once again thank our friend Virginia Munden and the Buzz Conference for sponsoring today's episode. Be sure to visit www.thebuzzconference.com. Follow them on Instagram at The Buzz Conference. Keep tabs on all of the amazing events that they're always hosting, along with getting the latest copy of the Buzz digital magazine. Of course, do not forget about September 7th and 8th for Disruption 2022, taking place in Toronto at the Liberty Grand. Again, go over to thebuzzconference.com, get your tickets, and do that now. Of course, I also want to thank Kids Keep in Touch Systems for sponsoring today's episode. If you haven't checked us out yet, just go to my site, mindshare101.com, and click on Marketing. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.